What? I turned my head sharply to look at my wife, Carol. What did you just say? I asked, not believing what I had just heard. Dan, I know you'll be angry, but I'm not happy right now, and I'm thinking about us having a trial breakup, so I can gather my thoughts and decide what I want, Carol told me, as I stood on the porch preparing steaks on the grill. My friend Karen has a free room, and she said that I could stay with her for now. When were you going to tell me, Carol? Or were you just going to leave me a note on my pillow tonight? I said a little louder than I probably should have. Don't raise your voice, Dan. I don't want Andy to hear what we're talking about, she said. Andy, our 6-year-old son. I knew you would react this way. That's why I didn't want to bring up this topic until tonight. In other words, you have already decided to leave. Will you tell Andy or leave it with me after you leave? I asked in a sarcastic tone. I'll tell him myself tonight, before going to bed, she answered. This is not forever, you know. Well, yes, you're moving in with that tramp, Karen. I probably should have foreseen that this would happen, I told her, getting angrier every minute. Tomorrow I will prepare the documents, you will sign them, and by Wednesday I will submit them to the court. Which documents? Followed her question. Well, if you're going to leave, I want it to be a legal separation. Then when you don't come back, it will automatically turn into a divorce decree. This way we won't have to go through all the hassle twice, I told her. I don't want a divorce, Dan. Just a little time to myself to sort out some things, that's all, honey, Carol replied. Bullshit, Carol, I spat back. I've been asking you to talk to me for the past 4 months, but you've been too busy with Karen and your new friends to make time. Now you want to move in with your new friend Karen to do what you've probably been wanting to do for the last 6 months, I was now screaming. But you won't do that with my blessing, and I'm certainly not going to stand by and get cuckolded by you or anyone else, I said, slamming the grill lid shut. Things weren't going at all as Carol expected. She knew Dan would be angry, but she thought she could convince him that this would be an experience for both of them. But now, it blew up in her face. Dan, please, was all Carol could manage before he stormed off in anger, leaving her behind the grill to watch. Taking the steaks off the grill and placing them on a plate, she went to look for him. She found Dan upstairs in their bedroom. He literally threw all her clothes and everything else and carried her into the spare bedroom. Take your shit and get the hell out. I don't care anymore, I yelled at her. I'll send the documents to your office, sign them and return them to Keith, the lawyer I've been seeing for the last 6 years. Don't worry, I'll take Andy to dinner so he doesn't have to watch his mother abandon him, I said, grabbing my coat and my son before heading to my car. Karin, this is Carol, she began. Dan didn't take it well, really badly, and he's threatening to divorce me, Carol said, tears welling up in her eyes. I told you that he won't be happy, but he'll come to his senses soon, so don't worry, Karen told her over the phone. Damn it, in a couple of weeks he'll be begging you to come back and then you'll have him right where you want him. I hope you're right, Karen, because right now he's ready to throw me out the door and start filing divorce papers, she said hesitantly. I need to rest a little, but I don't want to give up my marriage at all, Carol said. I'll come now and help you with your things, Karen told her. The sooner you are left alone, away from him, the sooner you will understand what you really want. With that, Karen drove over, helping Carol pack up most of her things, and they left the house before Dan and Andy returned. I have foreseen this for a long time. Carol and I were both accountants and met 8 years ago when we were both auditing a troubled company. Each of us represented a separate bank that had a controlling stake in the bankrupt company. We worked together and ended up having lunch and dinner with each other almost every night. It took us a whole week to complete the test. And by then we discovered that we really liked each other. Carol was about 5 feet 6 inches tall with brown hair and weighed about 175 pounds. She had a pretty face, but she was a little stocky. I was about 5'8", about 195, and at 22 I already had a spare tire around my waist from eating fast food every day. We were made for each other. 4 months later we were married, and 8 months later Carol discovered she was pregnant. Carol had a difficult pregnancy. She was bedridden for the last 5 months and gained a ton of weight. By the time she gave birth to Andy, she had ballooned to almost 250 pounds. I, however, never said a word. I loved her no matter her weight. We were a happy family until Carol overheard 2 of her colleagues talking about her. She is such a beautiful woman, one girl said to the other. It's a pity that it's as big as a house. I wonder if her clothes were custom-made by Omar the tent maker, she asked, laughing loudly. They may have found it funny, but Carol didn't. Carol was crying in the bathroom when Karen came in. Are you okay, Carol? She asked. Everyone thinks I'm a fat pig, she said, crying. If they only knew how hard it is for me to lose weight, they wouldn't be so angry, she sobbed. Listen, girl, all you need is to go on a good diet and join the gym, Karen told her. You're a beautiful girl hiding under all this flab, that's all. You just have to make a decision and do it. And Carol did just that. I kept the books for the local gym and got a good membership, so we joined the training the following week. There was a kids' room in the gym, so we could take Andy with us after work when we both went. Carol was an obsessive woman and trained 6 days a week, while I could only fit in 3 days a week. Then Carol went to the doctor and got a prescription for diet pills. I didn't like it, but Carol was on a mission to lose weight. 8 months later, Carol had lost 125 pounds and looked fantastic. She bought a whole new wardrobe, and everyone, including the men at her work, said she looked great. That's when the trouble started. We were at Carol's Christmas party when the shit hit the fan. Carol wore a dress that was more than a little revealing and was attacked by her male co-workers throughout the night. She was in seventh heaven from the attention she received. When a group of guys caught her under the mistletoe, she must have kissed a dozen before I walked over and put an end to it. Carol probably had too much to drink and didn't even notice the boys' hands were on her while they were kissing. I took Carol's hand and told her it was time for us to leave. She didn't want to leave right now and made a little scene. Carol, I'm leaving right now, with or without you, I finally told her. She softened, but I could tell she was pissed. On the way home, we had a big fight. Carol, today you acted like some cheap tramp. I, like everyone else, saw these guys wrap their arms around you and you didn't do anything to stop them, I screamed. It was just innocent fun, nothing special, she replied. Not from where I stood, I answered. How would you like it if I kissed and grabbed some girl? I asked, although I knew that she was too drunk to listen to the voice of reason. That evening, Carol became ill. Fortunately, she managed to take off her new dress before throwing away the cookies. The next morning, she looked terrible and apologized to me, saying it would never happen again. But it happened. I just wasn't there next time. Carol began going to bachelorette parties after work on Wednesdays. There were 7 girls, some married, some not, who were meeting for a few drinks at Tony's after work. It started out saying she had to be home by 6:30, but that soon stretched to 7:30, and finally until almost 9 p.m. When Carol returned home, Andy was already in bed, and I was not in the best mood. When we first got married, we had sex like teenagers, and couldn't get enough of each other. Now it seemed that if we did this once a week, it would count as often. One thing's for sure. When Carol came home on a Wednesday night, she was ready to trot, and tonight was no exception. Neither of us had what you'd call much sexual experience when we first got married, and we were a little apprehensive about trying something new from the very beginning. We learned from each other what each of us liked, and within a few X-rated movies, we added many things to our repertoire. Now, however, every week when Carol returned home, she seemed to want to try something new and exciting, for most of which I wondered where she got the idea from. When we got married, Carol didn't know a damn thing about caressing my manhood, but even a bad result is better than no result. Tonight, she came out of the bathroom completely naked and asked, "Where is my lollipop?" She drank more than usual and came later than usual, but she knew how to put me in a good mood. She began to caress my manhood and did it better than ever. She was ready when I turned her over and she stopped me. "Just take me tonight, honey. I just need to feel you," she said. I did everything I could. Not wanting to reach the finish line early, I thought about my mother, about my new audit proposal, about anything, just to hold on for a couple more minutes before releasing the load. Carol seemed to enjoy this as she screamed as if I was killing her. When we were both exhausted, Carol collapsed onto the bed. "Damn, I needed this," she told me. "But I think I'll be sick for a whole week," she said with a laugh, rolling onto her back. I snuck up to her, kissed her, and told her how happy I was to be married to her. Well, that's how it was until this week. After dinner, Andy and I returned to the empty house. This bitch Karen, I thought to myself. Ever since Carol lost weight, Karen is constantly up to something with her. No wonder her husband left her. She was just a whore, and now she's turning my wife into one too. I put Andy to bed and read him a bedtime story. When he asked about his mother, I simply told him that my mother was visiting and would be home in a couple of days, but I didn't believe it for a minute. I went down the stairs, called my mother, and filled her in on the matter. "Mom, can you look after Andy during the day until I find someone permanent?" I asked. "Honey, Carol will come to her senses and be back by the end of the week, you know her. She can't be away from Andy for more than a few hours before she goes crazy," Mom told me. "But I will arrive before you go to work and look after him." I hoped she was right, but I wasn't as sure as my mother. On Monday, I contacted Keith and told him that Carol had left me. "I want full protection, including permanent custody of Andy. I want it written down and spelled out in no uncertain terms that if one of us acts in a way that a married spouse should not do, then the other gets 65-35% of our assets. I think she's trying to trick me, and I want someone to cover for me," I told Keith. "I want it to have a 60-day shelf life before it becomes a decree of divorce. And can you do it by tomorrow?" I asked. "Are you in too much of a hurry, Dan?" "She just left, and are you ready to write divorce papers?" he asked me. "Carol has been planning this for a long time, and maybe this will bring her to her senses. If not, I don't want to lose everything I've worked for just because she wants to try some new manly instrument," I told him. "Okay, Dan, I'll do it today, and tomorrow she'll get serviced at work. Anything else?" "It's not like I can think. I just need to draw a line in the sand so she understands what she can lose, that's all. Also, Keith, I will need to draw up 2 more agreements, but we have some time for them. I will fax you what I need later this week." When Carol came to work on Tuesday, she was a little upset. She had never seen Andy and Dan for so long in the last 8 years. Returning from lunch, she heard that a man was waiting for her in her office. "Carol Spencer?" he asked. "Yes. I'm Carol. How can I help you?" "You have been served," he said, handing her an envelope made of thick paper. Carol spent the next half hour going over all the terms and division of property described in the separation decree, even though it looked more like real divorce papers. It stated that Dan would receive temporary but full custody of Andy, and Carol would be allowed visitation with reasonable notice. By the time she finished reading, she was more hurt than angry. "I've been gone for 2 days, and Dan has already written off our marriage," she said to herself. She tried to call Dan, but his secretary said he would be gone all day and his cell phone went to voicemail. At this point, Dan was home, changing the locks, working on separating their finances, and removing Carol's name from his insurance and 401k. By 4 o'clock, I had finished everything and turned on my cell phone. "Damn," I said to myself. 12 messages from Carol. I deleted them all. I had dinner with Andy at my mother's house and told her what I had done. "Carol is angry as hell, Dan. I would be angry if I were her." "Mom," I answered, "I can't fix this marriage on my own, especially since she won't listen to reason, so I've upped the ante. She started this mess herself, but I swear to God, I will end things with her if I find out that she is cheating on me. I used to trust her, but now I wouldn't trust a word she said. So right now, I'm protecting my son and myself. If we get back together, it will be great. If not, then I'll hold all the cards. Son, I've never seen this side of you. Remind me never to get on your bad side," Mom said with a laugh. Carol stopped at her house and tried to use the key. "What the hell?" she said to herself before noticing that it was a new lock. "Damn it." She picked up her cell phone and dialed Dan's number again, just before it went to voicemail, so she left him another message. Now everything is done as expected, I thought, looking at my checklist. Now I can only wait. On Wednesday morning, Carol was in Dan's office. My credit cards don't work, and when I went to pick up a prescription on the way to work, they told me I no longer had insurance. "Just covering my bases, Carol, remember? You left me. I pay all the expenses for the house and Andy, But from now on, you will have to take care of yourself so you and I will not have any financial problems to argue about. Dan, you've let this get completely out of control, Carol shouted. I just needed some time alone, that's all. Leaning over the table, I said in the most serious and imperturbable tone, Carol, do you see the word stupid tattooed on my forehead? I may not be the smartest guy in the world, but I wasn't born yesterday. Karen has turned your head so much that you can't seem to find your ass with both hands. You think you can go out and act like you're single again without any consequences. Think again. The first time I find out that you broke your marital vows, we're done. Hell, you've probably already done this, so I don't even know why we're having this conversation right now. I'm so angry with you right now that I can't think of anything, so I think it would be better if you just leave so that I don't say anything that will throw what's left of our marriage down the toilet. With these words, I sat down. Carol was shocked and angry herself. You can't dictate to me like a small child. I'm an equal partner in this marriage, so screw you, she spat. Well, in the last 6 months, that hasn't happened often either, but I guess now you're getting all you can on the side anyway, I said, loud enough for Carol to hear. With these words, she turned and left. I knew she hadn't done anything yet, but she was close. You see, I started following her on Wednesday about a month ago. There was a lot of kissing and hand play, but that's all there was. I knew she would be thrilled to live with Karen, so I wanted to make sure Carol understood exactly what would happen if she cheated on me. The first 2 weeks were difficult. Carol made it a point to visit Andy, but she never said more than 2 words to me. I still followed her, but nothing new happened. She still met with Karen and her friends, but not only on Wednesdays, but at least 4 evenings a week. It looks like someone is trying to catch up, I said to myself, looking at the report. However, I found a nanny of sorts to take care of Andy, a girl just out of college who couldn't find a job. Beth was a 23-year-old blonde, about 5'9", tall, with a slim build. She graduated, but could only find part-time work, so when she saw my ad for a nanny, she jumped at the chance. Beth came from a large family and knew how to care for little boys. She had 2 younger brothers, so we came to an agreement on fees and hours, and she moved in the next day. Beth worked as a waitress in a mid-priced family restaurant on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Other nights, we all ate together. After a few weeks, Andy became very relaxed with Beth, especially when she read to him before bed. Beth, I really appreciate you going the extra mile with Andy. Now that his mother is not with him, he needs all the stability in his life that I can give him, I said, with the best smile I could muster. I know about you and your wife. Your mother filled me in on all the details in case Carol came and tried to grab him, Beth told me. I just can't believe she just left you like that. I've only known you for a short time, but you are one of the most caring men I've ever met, and I can see that you love Andy to death. Carol probably got confused about what was really important and allowed others to convince her that the grass was greener on the other side of the fence, I replied. Well, one way or another, it will be over in 40 days, and it can't come too soon for me. Little did I know that there would be a major shift in my life, and this shit would hit the fan in less than a week. You see, I'm a silent partner in the accounting firm I work for. I've brought in so much new business in the last 2 years that the owners made me a 15% partner. I asked to keep it a secret because I didn't want to be known as one of the owners. This way I could find out what the employees really thought about the company and how it was run. My latest achievement was meeting with a foreign clothing manufacturer that had factories in 5 Asian countries. I met the owners at a party about a year ago and shared some of my ideas with them. They were so impressed that we met the next week to talk about our firm hiring them. Dan, I like the way your company operates. You seem to go beyond the norm and bring a personal touch to everything you do, one of the prospective owners told him. Each plant now operates independently, so I need someone to install the same system in each plant so we can manage them all from one overseas office. They were unhappy that I would not handle the overseas operation myself, but I convinced them that I myself would monitor everything that was happening so that there were no mistakes. The party started with a signed contract and a handshake. We had been working on this case for 9 months, and I was eager to return home to Carol with good news. I would love to take her to the best restaurant, bring her home, and fall in love with her body. But when I returned home, the house was empty. Beth and Andy arrived 20 minutes later with Chinese takeout. I was bursting at the seams and needed to tell someone my wonderful news, so I told Beth. "Forget about dinner. We'll all go celebrate tonight," I told her. "Wear your best dress because we're going out in style." My bosses made reservations at the best restaurant in town for 8 hours and sent a limousine to pick us up at 7:30, so we had to hurry. I shaved, took a shower, and got dressed. I told Beth I would prepare Andy so she would have more time. By 7:15, Andy and I were dressed and ready to go, and then I saw Beth coming down the stairs. "I hope you don't mind. I didn't have anything unusual, so I found one of your wife's dresses that suited me," she explained to me. She was right. It fit her perfectly, like a silk glove, but it was a little short, since she was much taller than Carol. "Do you think it looks okay?" "You look great, Beth," I said with my mouth wide open as the bell rang. The 3 of us were placed in the back seat of a limousine just as Carol was driving down our street. "What the hell?" was all she could say when she saw them all climb into the limousine. "I wonder what's going on," she thought, turning the car around to follow them. She then watched as they exited the limousine and entered the restaurant. "That bastard. He took them to the best place in town, and when I wanted to go earlier, he said we couldn't afford it," she blurted out. "Who the hell was that girl in my dress? We all had a wonderful evening. I was the guest of honor, and we ate and drank to our heart's content. It was Beth who told me that it was time to leave because Andy was tired, because it was long past his bedtime. You're right. We better leave. Otherwise, we'll never wake him up for school in the morning." I thanked everyone for dinner, but as they shook my hand, they looked past me at Beth, and not just the men. Beth looked very attractive tonight, and all the women looked at her with envy. They'd all heard the story of Carol leaving to find herself, and it looked like Dan wasted no time replacing her. They chuckled to themselves. We drove home quietly because Andy fell asleep as soon as we got into the limo. I carried him upstairs, undressed him, and put him to bed, kissing him good night on his forehead. I walked downstairs, still in my tuxedo, to find Beth enjoying a glass of wine at the kitchen table. "I want to thank you for tonight. You shouldn't have taken me with you," she told me with a smile. "How could I leave you here alone tonight? And besides, I really enjoy your company, Beth," I said, pouring myself a glass of wine. "I hope you weren't too bored sitting with a bunch of accountants today. On the contrary, I never knew that your work is so interesting, and all people seem to really like you, including me," she said with a slight smile. "You make me feel like I'm part of your family, even though I'm just a nanny. Calm down, my heart. And damn it, I wish my arousal wasn't so obvious," I thought, hiding it from Beth. It's been a long time since I've made real love to a woman. The last few times with Carol have been disappointing. I would have loved to take Beth to my bedroom, but I also knew that I was still married and would remain faithful to Carol no matter what. Tonight was magical, and my head is spinning with what I would like to do right now, but to my horror, it won't happen today, I told her. Maybe if things were different, but they aren't, so I need to take a cold shower and go to bed, I told Beth, kissing her cheek as she hugged me. It was 2:00 in the morning when I felt Beth crawl into bed with me. I could tell from the warmth she radiated that she was naked. I wanted to say something, but she put her finger to my lips. "I know we can't do anything today. I just want to be close to you, that's all," she said, hugging me. The next morning I woke up alone. I found Beth downstairs, dressed, preparing breakfast for the 3 of us. No one said anything. Carol was beside herself. Here I am trying to figure out what I want from life with Dan, and he's already thrown me to the curb and found some slut, she said, slamming her hand on the table. She made the mistake of mentioning this to Karen, who told her that all husbands cheat on their wives and that tonight they should go and celebrate her newfound freedom. She didn't feel like going out and having fun tonight, and she really wanted to talk to Dan, but he was always at some other damn meeting. Carol and the group met again at Tony's, and it was packed as usual. After a couple of drinks, most of the group headed home, but not Carol and Karen. A couple of cute guys were trying to stake their claim, and Karen was already kissing one of them. Another guy held her on the dance floor, and when the slow dance began, she melted in his arms. His warm hands slid all over her body, and Carol felt herself slowly giving in to his advances. She hadn't been with a man in a long time. And this guy was stunningly handsome, had the body of a Greek god, and wanted her as much as she wanted him. She never stopped him when he kissed her while dancing. She never stopped him as he led her to the corner of the dance floor and pinned her against the wall. However, she had to stop him when he put his hands under her dress, caressing her breasts and private parts. Yes, she should have stopped him, especially since the private investigator Dan hired was taping the whole thing. The four of them returned to Karen, and although Carol was now lying naked on the bed next to him, she finally came to her senses. "I can't. I just can't," she said. "I'm still married, and, despite everything, I still love my husband," she said, ignoring his objections. So he left her alone, and Carol took cold showers. "I have to get my head and ass in order," she told herself the next morning. But something that was beyond her control began to change her life, and not for the better. On the computer screen, I saw photographs of Carol, the last one of which was of the four of them entering Karen's apartment. I emailed them to my lawyer and told him to get the papers together, but to put them off until Monday. "It looks like she finally made her decision," I said sadly, because I really wanted to meet Carol again, but now it was no longer possible. "I'll take care of the Asian project myself," I told my superiors the next day. "I need to leave, and this will give me time to clear my head and get my life in order," I told them. "Dan, everything is ready for launch on the 12th, that is, a week after next Tuesday. Can you be ready to leave?" they asked. "Give me 2 days to put my affairs in order and arrange my apartment so that I have somewhere to send my things," I told them. "I have 2 more people to talk to today, and if everything goes according to plan, I'll be ready." That same day, I assigned my staff to handle all of my unfinished projects. I scribbled down the paperwork to give Mom the power of attorney and told Keith to file the paperwork for Carol the following Monday. I would be safe in the air while she was served, I said sadly. That evening I went home to a house that would not be mine when I returned from overseas, and I was very sad. Carol and I chose it together, and it had so many good memories, and now they will all be gone. I was unusually quiet at dinner, and Beth thought she had done something. "No, I just have a lot on my plate. We'll talk after Andy goes to bed," I told her. By 10:08, the house was silent, and we both stared at each other. Beth spoke first. "What's the matter, Dan?" "If it's because of that night, then I'm very sorry, and it won't happen again. I promise," she told me. "Beth, that's not the point. Remember that party the company threw for me a couple of weeks ago? Well, I've decided to do the overseas work myself, and Andy and I will be leaving early Monday morning," I told her. "And I have an important question for you," I began, seeing that Beth was starting to cry. "Do you want to come with us?" She turned from teary eyes to a smile. "Hell yes," she said, throwing herself into my arms. "Do you have a valid passport, Beth?" I asked. "I updated it last year when I went on a cruise with my college friends," she told me. "Well, then everything is fine. You'll need to pack everything by Saturday because they ship all our stuff early. Leave just enough clothes to last until the end of the weekend and travel clothes for Monday. You can tell your family and friends, but I don't want Carol to know until we're in the air. I'm not sure if it's completely legal to just take Andy and go, but I'll do it anyway. I'll answer all your questions when we get back," I told her. That same evening, I met with my mother and explained everything to her, including giving her my power of attorney. "Carol will probably be okay by Monday afternoon, but I still want you to put the house on the market next week. Keith will send you a copy of the papers I'm sending Carol, and if she has any questions, just tell her to talk to Keith. Are you sure this is what you want, Dan? Do you want to try and work it out with her?" Mom asked. "She made her bed, and now she can sleep in it with whomever she wants," I said. "Are you taking Beth with you?" she asked, trying to get the last phrase out of her son. I don't know exactly where we're going, but she makes me smile and keeps me sane. Other than that, I may have some real feelings for her, and that's all I'm going to say. We'll be arriving Sunday night, so you can say goodbye to Andy, I told her. Carol was trying to reach Dan on Monday when she was told at work that he was busy with a special outside project, but would pass on a message to him. What the hell is he doing? She thought, unsuccessfully trying to reach him. Carol Spencer? Asked the man. She nodded. You've been served, he said, handing her an envelope. So what now? She asked, opening the envelope. There was a short note from Dan, which said that he had made a decision. I hope you have a wonderful life. That's how he ended it. And then she saw the photographs. Oh, crap, was all she could say. Where the hell did he get these photos? She thought. That son of a bitch must have been following me, she said, leafing through them. These weren't the kind of photos you'd want to see of your wife with another man. But I never slept with him. I have to make him understand that, she told herself. Dan went abroad for 4 or 5 months. He left with Andy on Monday morning, Dan's mother told Carol. He can't take Andy away from me, especially out of the country, she shouted. I'll take him to court and make sure he goes to jail, she shouted. Carol, Dan has full custody of Andy, remember? You gave up that right when you left to find yourself, she reminded her. To say you royally screwed up would be a gross understatement. You had a great marriage, but I think you wanted more, and now you have nothing, Dan's mother told her. I have to talk to him and explain that everything is not as it seems, Carol said, sobbing. I still love him, and have never gone to bed with anyone else. Carol, I saw the photographs, and if my husband were alive and did what you did, I would divorce him too. If I were you, I'd write him a letter and explain what you need, and I'll make sure he gets it. Carol did a good job of making her point. That alcohol played a big part, and that she stopped it and hasn't gone all the way with anyone since she left. Carol said she still loved me and would wait for me to come back to her. I answered briefly and to the point. Carol, you haven't been my wife since you lost weight last year. It's like you've become too good for me. You hogged every man's attention and made me feel used on Wednesday night when you finally decided to come home to me. You were all hot and horny, and all you wanted was good sex, not making love to your husband. So now you and Karen can have sex with whoever you want. I told you that Karen would separate us in the end, but you knew that wasn't the case. Andy, Beth, and I are building a new life based on love and trust. You can see Andy whenever you want. Just get your computer's camera modem and I'll set it up. Sign the papers because Mom is putting the house on the market this week. There's no chance in hell that we'll ever get back together, so don't expect me to change my mind. I hope you finally got what you were looking for, Carol, and are happy, although I never wanted this to happen. Carol knew Dan was right. She was a stupid idiot, listening to all her good friends who knew what they were talking about. That's probably why they all got divorced. She was going to struggle until she received Dan's letter and finally signed the papers. The irony was that 6 months later, Carol was back to the 175 pounds she started at 2 years earlier, but no longer had Dan. I was happy. The work was a little hard due to the language barrier, but I managed. Andy picked up words here and there and managed to communicate with all the guys he played with. Beth took care of Andy and established a routine for our free time, places to see, things to do, as she put it. I still remember that night a few months ago. It was right after we arrived in the country, and we were all a little stressed. Andy was struggling to go to bed, my program wasn't going as smoothly as it should have, and Beth was feeling a little overtired. She walked into the office and kissed the back of my head, which brought a smile to my face. She leaned over, took my hand, and led me into the bedroom, where there was one candle on each side of the bed. We undressed and went to bed. Let's just say that night, heaven and earth merged into one. We had tender, loving sex for the first time. For the next few months, we did whatever the other wanted, as long as it didn't involve pain. We were more than happy. 5 months later, my mother met us at the airport. She was happy to see us all, especially Andy. On the way home, she kept glancing at Beth, who seemed pleased. How far have you come? She asked. Beth stepped back a little. For 3 months. How do you know I hardly show myself? She answered. You both look too happy, like the cat that ate the canary, she told us. We got married 2 weeks later, and 6 months later, Rhonda was born. When Beth said she wanted to go to the gym to lose her post-baby weight, I looked like I'd seen a ghost. 2 days later, I told her that I had hired her a personal trainer, and that she would be doing all the training. There's no point in going through all this crap a second time, I thought to myself. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.